Inside the Vatican City, the smallest country in the world, there are archives so secret that even historians aren't allowed to see them. Some believe they contain forbidden knowledge. Others claim the Vatican operates powerful telescopes to study the universe. But one of the strangest legends says that somewhere inside, a machine was built to see the past. Today on Project NOTOS, we are exploring 3 of the most intriguing mysteries connected to the Vatican. And after visiting Rome, I discovered that some of them might actually be real. And to understand why these stories even exist, we need to start with the place itself. Standing here feels a bit surreal, because Vatican City is not just a religious center. It is actually a sovereign country. The entire state covers only about 44 hectares, making it the smallest independent nation on the planet. The modern Vatican State was officially created in 1929, with the Lateran Treaty, signed between Italy and the Holy See. Inside these walls lives the leader of the Catholic Church, the Pope, now Leo XIV. His official residence is the Apostolic Palace, located right next to the famous St. Peter's Basilica. The Vatican even has its own guards, its own bank, its own post office, and its own flag. But beyond religion and politics, this tiny country has also been involved in science, history, and knowledge for centuries. And that brings us to the first mystery, the Vatican Secret Archives. One of the most famous mysteries connected to the Vatican is its enormous historical archive. For centuries, it was known as the Vatican Secret Archives. Just hearing the word secret immediately sparks the imagination. Many people imagine hidden conspiracies, forbidden documents, or lost historical knowledge. But the reality is both fascinating and more complex. The archive actually contains over 80 kilometers of shelving filled with historical documents. These documents include letters from kings and emperors, diplomatic records, and documents going back more than 1,000 years. Today, the archive is officially called the Vatican Apostolic Archive. The word secret originally came from the Latin word secretum, which simply meant private. So the archive was not necessarily secret in the modern conspiracy sense. However, access has traditionally been very restricted. Only qualified scholars and historians can enter, and they must request specific documents for research. Inside of the archive, there are documents connected to some of the most important moments in history. For example, historians can find documents related to the trial of Galileo Galilei, the scientist who defended the idea the Earth moves around the Sun, first introduced by Copernicus. There are also letters from Michelangelo, political documents from European kings, and records from the medieval church. So, while the archives are not a secret vault of supernatural mysteries, they are still one of the largest and most important historical collections on Earth. But the Vatican is also a place full of hidden stories and puzzles that historians have tried to understand for centuries. And speaking of solving puzzles, here is the latest game from Care Games, Iridio, where you explore an open world filled with fire and water enigmas, and where every game zone challenges your timing, logic, and creativity. You'll need to carefully navigate dangerous obstacles while facing environmental challenges that test your ability to think ahead. But that's not all. Along the way, you'll also face fast-paced shooting challenges that require precision, quick reactions, and strategy with human and non-human NPCs controlled by smart AI. Each game zone pushes you to adapt and experiment, just like explorers and historians must do when trying to understand the mysteries of the past. Iridio is available now in early access on Steam, and you can find the link to play in the description below. A big thank you to Care Games for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to exploring the mysteries of the Vatican. The Vatican's connection with science goes far beyond historical documents, because for centuries the Church has also studied something much bigger, the universe. Many people think religion and science are always enemies, but historically the Catholic Church supported many scientific studies, including astronomy. In fact, the Vatican runs one of the oldest astronomical institutions in the world. It is called the Vatican Observatory. The observatory has existed in different forms since the 1500s. One of its early goals was to help scientists better understand the movement of the Earth and other planets around the Sun. This research helped support the calendar reform introduced by Pope Gregory XIII. That reform created the Gregorian calendar, the calendar system used by most of the world today. But modern astronomy requires very dark skies. And unfortunately, the bright lights of Rome make it difficult to observe the stars. So today the Vatican Observatory operates a powerful telescope called the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, located far away in the desert of Arizona, sitting on a mountain where the skies are extremely clear. Despite its name, the telescope is not located inside the Vatican itself. From there, scientists study distant galaxies, stars, and cosmic phenomena. So yes, the Vatican is literally involved in modern astrophysics. Priests and scientists working together to study the universe. But while the telescope is very real and scientific, there is another story connected to the Vatican that sounds far more mysterious. A machine that could look not into space, but into the past. In the 1960s, a strange story began circulating in Italy. It involved a Benedictine monk named Pellegrino Ernetti. According to Ernetti, he had helped create an incredible device called the Chronovisor. This machine supposedly allowed scientists to observe events from the past. The idea behind the Chronovisor was that every event in history leaves behind tiny traces of electromagnetic radiation. If someone could detect and reconstruct those signals, they might be able to recreate images of past events. In theory, the machine could show scenes from the ancient history. Ernetti even claimed that the device had been used to observe ancient Roman plays and important moments in history. Some stories said the machine had even been used to view the crucifixion of Jesus. Of course, these claims quickly created enormous controversy. If such a machine existed, it would completely change our understanding of history. But there is a major problem with the story. There has never been any scientific evidence that the Chronovisor actually existed. Most historians believe the story was either a misunderstanding, a myth, or possibly even a hoax. Still, the legend became very popular. Many people imagine that the Vatican had confiscated the machine and hidden it away to prevent dangerous uses. Whether true or not, the Chronovisor remains one of the most fascinating technological legends connected to the Vatican. But what about the opposite question? If we cannot look into the past, can we somehow look into the future? That's exactly the idea we explore in another video called How Will Our World Look Like in 2100, where we try to imagine what technology, cities, and everyday life might look like at the end of this century. If you're curious about that, subscribe to the channel and check that out after this one. Link in the description below. Before we finish our exploration, it's time for a quick ProjectNOTOS tradition. Let's look at a few fun facts and curiosities about the Vatican that many visitors don't notice. Because even outside its mysteries, this tiny country has some very surprising details. First, the Vatican has its own army. They are called the Pontifical Swiss Guard, and they are famous for their colorful Renaissance-style uniforms. Despite their historical appearance, the Swiss Guard is actually a modern security force, trained to protect the Pope and control security inside the Vatican. Another curious fact is that the Vatican has its own railway. Yes, there is a small train station inside the Vatican City connected to the Italian railway system. However, it is rarely used for passengers and mostly serves logistical purposes. Technically speaking, the Vatican is one of the few countries in the world where you could cross the entire nation by train in just a few seconds. Here is another surprising detail. The Vatican has one of the highest crime rates in the world, but there is a simple explanation. Because the country is so small and receives millions of tourists every year, even small crimes like pickpocketing can make the statistics look extremely high. Another interesting fact is about the famous Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. It plays a crucial role in one of the most important events in the Catholic Church. This is where the College of Cardinals gathers to elect a new pope during the papal conclave. Last one, this is also where the famous white smoke tradition comes from. After each round of voting, the ballots are burned in a special stove inside the chapel. If no pope is elected, chemicals are added to produce black smoke, signaling that the vote was inconclusive. But when a new pope is finally chosen, the smoke becomes white, announcing to the world that the Catholic Church has a new leader. Alright explorers, if you have enjoyed this video, the best way to support ProjectNOTOS is to subscribe to the channel. That really helps us to keep uncovering strange inventions, hidden stories, and fascinating historical events. Vatican City might be tiny on the map, but its influence on history, science, and culture has been enormous. And maybe that's why this place continues to attract visitors from all over the world. Tell me in the comments, which Vatican mystery do you find the most fascinating? Do you think we will really be able to reconstruct the past one day? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.